was halfway through reheating leftover pasta when someone knocked. 3 sharp taps that made my chest tighten. I rarely get visitors. When I opened the door and saw him standing there, my brain lagged behind my vision of my father. The man who walked out on me when I was 12. The man whose back I watched disappear through a cracked living room window while clutching the stuffed bunny he'd given me 2 birthdays earlier. He looked smaller than I remembered. Gray hair, sunken cheeks, clothes hanging off him like he'd borrowed someone else's body. But his eyes, those cold, restless eyes, were exactly the same. "Vivian," he breathed like the name belonged to him. "Sweetheart. It's been a while." I didn't move. Didn't speak. My hand stayed on the doorframe, knuckles whitening. The memories, the abandonment, the unanswered questions, they all surged at once like a blast wave. He stepped forward without waiting for permission. I need to talk. It's important. Life and death important." My stomach dropped. Not because he was here, but because something in his voice told me he didn't come back for me. He came for something from me. "Please," he whispered. "I need a favor, a big one." And without waiting, he walked inside. He sat on my couch like he'd never forfeited the right to be there. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too intimate, too invaded. I stood by the door, arms crossed, watching a stranger try to pretend he was my father. "So," he said, looking around, "you've done well for yourself." Small talk. After 15 years. Like we were old friends catching up over coffee. I didn't sit. "What do you want?" He winced, as if my tone wounded him more than his absence ever wounded me. "Vivian, we don't need to start like this. I'm still You're not," I said sharply. Silence stretched, thick and awkward. He licked his lips, wringing his hands like he was rewinding a rehearsed speech. "Okay, fine. I'll get to the point. I'm sick." Something heavy dropped into my stomach. He watched my reaction like he expected sympathy, tears, maybe a hug. Instead, I stared blankly. "I need help," he continued. "Your help. You're my last hope." My jaw clenched. "Help with what?" He inhaled shakily, then leaned forward, voice trembling. "I need a kidney, Vivian." The room spun. My knees nearly buckled. He didn't come back for answers, he came back for my body. "A kidney," I repeated, my voice barely audible. "Yes." His eyes darted desperately across my face. "You're the only match. I already checked." Checked. The word stung. He'd investigated my medical compatibility before even speaking to me. "You haven't been in my life for 15 years and you expect me to." "Yes," he interrupted. "Because you're my daughter. That means something." I laughed, but it came out strangled. "Did it mean something when you walked out?" His expression hardened. "Vivian, I didn't come here for judgment. I came here because I'm dying." I swallowed a bitter knot. "Why me?" "Because fate brought us back together," he said softly. "Maybe this is God's way of fixing things." There it was, the manipulation, the emotional leverage, the expectation that genetics alone obligated me to sacrifice my body. He reached for my hands. I jerked away. "Is that why you came?" I asked. "For a kidney." He hesitated, then nodded. No apology. No remorse. Just entitlement masked as desperation. "I need you," he whispered. "Not I'm sorry. Not I love you. Just I need your kidney." And in that moment I realized something chilling. He didn't want me back. He wanted access. The second I questioned him, his tone shifted like a snapped rubber band. "I didn't abandon you," he snapped. "Your mother pushed me away. She made everything impossible." There was blame, not accountability. I crossed my arms tighter. "You left, Dad. I was 12. I remember every detail." He scoffed. "Memory is tricky. You were a child." My throat burned. "I begged you to stay." He waved a hand dismissively. "I had my reasons. Life was complicated back then." Complicated. The same flimsy excuse he used the day he packed his bags, shouting about bills, stress, needing space. I'd spent years believing I wasn't worth staying for. Now he wanted parts of me. I know you're angry, he said, softening again when guilt trips didn't work. But this is our chance to rebuild. Our, echoed. Or just yours. He sighed, exasperated, as if I was being unreasonable. If you really cared, you'd do this. For me. For your father. Something inside me snapped. You don't get to call yourself that, I said. His eyes darkened, ego bruised. You owe me, he growled. I stepped back. No, I whispered. I don't owe you anything. But he didn't take no for an answer. His words triggered something in me. A memory so vivid it felt like the room dissolved around us. I was 12, sitting on the porch steps with that ridiculous pink bunny backpack. My father marched past me, suitcase in hand, jaw clenched. I grabbed his sleeve and begged him not to go. I'll be back in a few weeks, he lied without meeting my eyes. My mother sobbed in the doorway. I watched his car pull away until the taillights disappeared, waiting every day after school for him to return. I waited days, then months, then years. The memory shattered when he snapped his fingers to get my attention. I hated how quickly he could pull me back into the frightened little girl he once abandoned. I need time to think, I said firmly. He stiffened. I don't have time. And blinked. What does that mean? He rubbed his face, irritated. It means I already told the transplant team you agreed. They scheduled the compatibility tests for tomorrow morning. My breath caught. What? Choked out. You're young, healthy, he said casually. It's the least you can do. It wasn't a request. It was an expectation. That's when it hit me. He'd planned this long before he showed up. You what? Gasped. He didn't flinch. It's already set. They're expecting you at 9. The entitlement in his voice left me stunned. He acted like my body belonged to him by default. I never said yes, I said. He stood abruptly, towering over me. Don't make this harder, Vivian. You owe me this. My heart pounded. I don't owe you anything. You didn't raise me. His jaw tightened. I'm still your father. No, I said. You're a stranger. That's when he snapped. Do you have any idea what I've been through? You think your childhood was hard. Try being a man trying to survive. Anger flared. I was a child. He slammed his fist on the table, making me jump. You're being dramatic. You always were like your mother. Emotional, irrational. Froze. Those were the exact words he used the night he left. Then, in a quiet, venomous tone, he said, If you don't show up tomorrow, consider yourself dead to me. I laughed bitterly. I already was. His face twisted. Get out, I said, pointing to the door. He hesitated, then stormed out. But I knew, this wasn't over. The second the door slammed, my body collapsed onto the couch. Trembling. Humiliated. Angry. And God, I hated admitting it, hurt. That same old scar tissue he created years ago had torn open again. Called my mom. I needed grounding, perspective, something. She picked up on the second ring. Viv. Everything okay? I swallowed. He came to my apartment. Silence. Heavy one. You knew, I whispered. My mother exhaled shakily. He called me weeks ago. I didn't tell you because I wasn't sure he'd actually show. My throat tightened. And you didn't warn me. Vivian, he's dying. You're his only chance. I am not responsible for his choices, I shot back. He's still your father. No, Mom. He was my father in DNA only. Her tone softened. I just didn't want you to regret. The only thing I regret, I interrupted, is answering the door. There was another pause. He begged me to talk to you, she admitted. I said you'd need time. Time. I laughed bitterly. He scheduled tests tomorrow without my consent. He gasped. Viv, that's not legal. No. But it's him. I hung up before she could say more. My childhood wounds weren't just reopened. They were bleeding again. The next morning, rain drummed against my windshield as I drove to my mom's house. I didn't want to fight, but I needed answers. Needed to understand why she'd kept his return a secret. She opened the door before I even knocked. "Viv, why didn't you tell me?" I demanded, rushing past her. She sighed, closing the door softly. "I didn't want to trigger you." I turned on her. Too late. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd once done homework while she silently drowned in stress after he left. "He said you pushed him away," I said. Her eyes darkened. "Is that what he told you?" "Yes." She laughed bitterly. "Of course he did." "Then tell me the truth," I insisted. She hesitated before speaking. "He didn't leave because of me. He left because he couldn't handle responsibility. Any of it." My chest tightened. "So he walked out because of me?" "No," she said quickly. "Because he was selfish. Cowardly. He cared more about freedom than family." I looked away, throat burning. "He's trying to manipulate you," she whispered. "He always did." "Then why defend him now?" Yes. She stared at her hands. "Because I was afraid you'd hate me for keeping you away from him." "I hate him," I said softly. "Not you." But her silence told me she didn't fully believe it. My mom poured tea but didn't drink hers. She kept twisting the handle like she wished she could rewind the last 20 years. "You said he couldn't handle responsibility," I pressed. "Why?" She closed her eyes. "Because when you were young you were sick a lot, your asthma, the ER visits, the medications. He couldn't deal with the stress. He always complained about not getting enough sleep or time to himself." Froze. "He left because I needed care." "I was a child," I whispered. "And a wonderful one," she said quickly. "But he didn't want to be a father." "Not really." "He wanted the title, not the reality. So he left because taking care of me was inconvenient." She winced. "Yes. And because the medical bills scared him. He blamed me, said I made him feel trapped." Her voice cracked. "I begged him to stay. He chose himself." The truth lodged in my chest like a splinter. "And now he wants my kidney," I murmured. She nodded painfully. "He wants whatever benefits him. He always has." My jaw clenched. "He ran when I needed him. Why should I save him now?" My mom didn't answer. She didn't need to. Already knew. I needed clarity from someone who wasn't emotionally involved, so I drove to the hospital. I asked to speak with a transplant coordinator, explaining that my father had scheduled me for tests without my consent. She frowned. "You never signed any authorization forms." "Exactly," I said. She pulled up his file, scanning it with a deepening frown. "This is odd. He told us you were fully on board." My stomach twisted. "Did he mention his other relatives?" she asked. "What other relatives?" "He has siblings, cousins, several partial matches. None agreed." Blinked. "He didn't tell me that." She leaned forward gently. "Look, donors must participate willingly. Pressure, guilt, manipulation, these are all red flags. If you feel unsafe or coerced, please inform us." I exhaled, some mixture of relief and anger. He made it seem like I was his only option. The coordinator shook her head. "That's not true. You're just his best option. Younger, healthier, lower surgical risk." My stomach knotted tighter. "He sought you out because he assumed you'd comply," she added softly. I swallowed. "He doesn't know me at all." She gave me a sympathetic look. "Would you like us to file a note in his chart to indicate you're not participating?" A nod. It felt like reclaiming something he stole years ago. My voice. Curiosity gnawed at me. If he had other options, why me? What was he hiding? I needed answers, so I reached out to an aunt I barely remembered. My father's sister, Lillian. She responded within minutes, insisting we meet. When I arrived, she hugged me awkwardly, eyes glossy. "You look just like your mother," she murmured. "Cut straight to it. Did my father tell you he found me? She sighed heavily. He did. We all told him to leave you alone. Why? Asked. Because we know him, she said simply. She revealed everything. He went to multiple family members first. Asked them to donate. Tried guilt, then lies, then emotional blackmail. When they refused, he told them I had already said yes. That I was a good daughter who understood family loyalty. My breath hitched. He used me as leverage. She nodded sadly. He thought shaming us with your imaginary generosity would pressure someone to step up. It didn't work. My hands trembled with rage. He has always believed people exist to serve him, she said softly. You are not obligated to save him. Tell him that, I muttered. She shook her head. He won't hear it. But I would make him hear the truth. The next 3 days were hell. My phone buzzed non-stop. Unknown numbers, long rants, emotional pleas. Then messages from relatives I'd never met. How can you let him die? He said you promised. He devoted his life to you. That last one made me snort. His life. He wasn't around for mine. Some messages turned cruel, accusing me of being selfish, ungrateful, cold. I blocked every number. Then they found me on social media. My posts filled with strangers calling me a monster. That's when it clicked. He had weaponized the story. Turned himself into a martyr and me into a villain. Posted nothing. Said nothing. Silence was my armor. Until he showed up at my workplace. I was leading a morning meeting when the receptionist burst in pale. Vivian, there's someone here to see you. He's causing a scene. My heart plummeted. Already knew who. When I stepped into the lobby, he was shouting at the top of his lungs about how I was denying him the gift of life. People stared. Some whispered. Some filmed. My boss approached, confused and concerned. I wanted to disappear. My father spotted me, and the fury in his eyes told me things were about to get much worse. He barreled toward me, red-faced, waving his medical file like a banner. There she is. The daughter who'd rather let her father die than help. My co-workers froze. My stomach dropped. Dad, stop, I said through clenched teeth. Don't tell me to stop, he roared. I gave you life. And then abandoned it. I shot back before I could stop myself. Crowd formed. Phones lifted. He grabbed my wrist, not painfully, but tightly enough to make me feel trapped again at 12 years old. You agreed to help, he hissed. Tell them that. I never agreed. I yanked my arm away. Vivian, is everything okay? My boss asked. No, my father answered for me. She's killing me. Security approached. My father's voice cracked as he shouted. If she doesn't donate, I'm dead. Dead. My face burned. The humiliation was suffocating. Sir, you need to leave, security said. He pointed at me, trembling with rage. You're dead to me if you walk away. Something inside me hardened. I already walked away. 15 years ago. His mouth opened, but security escorted him out. As the doors shut behind him, the lobby fell silent. But inside I was shaking. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was war. When I got home that night, I collapsed onto my kitchen floor. Not the couch. Not the bed. The floor. I couldn't even make it further. My body trembled in a way I hadn't felt since childhood. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was exhausted. Emotionally shredded. Shaking from the inside out. I thought about giving in. Just to make it end. To silence him. To stop the harassment, the guilt, the escalating chaos. That old wounded part of me, the little girl who felt unworthy, whispered, maybe if you help him, he'll finally choose you. Then another memory surfaced. Me waiting on the porch for him to return, day after day, backpack still on from school, until the sun set and my mom carried me inside. He never chose me. Not then. Not now. I forced myself to breathe. Low. Intentional. I stood, wiped my face, and looked at myself in the mirror above the sink. Red eyes, shaking hands, but a spark of something new in my chest. Resolve. No more, I whispered. No more begging him for love. No more letting him write the narrative. No more being his scapegoat. It was time to protect myself, even if that meant destroying the illusion of family forever. The next morning, I marched into a lawyer's office with a folder full of screenshots, messages, and hospital documentation. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. The attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Sandra, listened silently as I recounted everything. When I finished, she leaned back, steepling her fingers. "This is harassment," she said plainly. "And coercion. You have enough evidence to file both a restraining order and a formal complaint with the transplant board." The words felt surreal. Legal action. Against my own father. Sandra continued. "Family or not, he's violating your rights. And misinformation in a medical context. That's serious." I swallowed. "What happens if I file the complaint?" "He gets flagged. His eligibility could be re-evaluated." A flicker of guilt stabbed through me, but she cut it off. "You are not responsible for his choices," she said firmly. "He put himself in this position." I nodded, slowly building strength. "Start documenting everything," she instructed. "Record conversations. Save messages. Protect yourself." Protect myself. No one had ever said those words to me with such conviction. As I left her office, the sunlight felt different. Sharper, clearer. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't the abandoned little girl anymore. Had options. And he had no idea what was coming. Despite blocking his number, I knew he'd find another way to reach me. But I wasn't expecting him at the hospital. During my own appointment, no less. I had gone to request documentation confirming I wasn't participating in the donation process. Everything felt straightforward. Until I turned a corner and came face to face with him. He looked frantic, wild-eyed. "Vivian, thank God you came." My stomach twisted. "I'm here for myself. Not for you." He ignored that. "I talked to the doctors. They said you haven't signed anything yet, but that's fine. We can do it today." "No," I cut in. "We can't." He blinked. "What?" "I've spoken to a lawyer," I said calmly. "You can't pressure me into this. And if you keep harassing me, I'll file a restraining order." His face drained of color. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "I would. And I will." A nurse approached, sensing the tension. "Is everything all right?" My father sputtered. "She's my daughter, she's supposed to donate." The nurse raised an eyebrow. "Supposed to. That's not how this works." I lifted my chin. "I am not his donor." My father stared at me like I'd stabbed him. But for the first time he seemed to understand. He couldn't control me. Not anymore. He didn't take rejection well. "You ungrateful brat," he spat, loud enough for half the waiting room to hear. "After everything I've done for you, what exactly have you done?" I asked quietly. He faltered, then doubled down. "I put a roof over your head. For 12 years, I said. Then you left." His face contorted into something ugly. "I should have known you'd end up like your mother. Selfish. Emotional. Impossible to reason with." Nurses stepped closer. People stared. "You never needed me," he continued, voice rising. "You never even tried to reach out. You think you're some innocent victim. You're not. You're just cold." I felt something inside me crack. Not a wound, but a chain. A chain I'd carried for years. One nurse asked gently, "Sir, we need you to calm down." But he was spiraling. "I told the transplant board you agreed. They're counting on this. You can't back out now." The nurse stiffened. "You told them she consented." His mouth snapped shut. And in that instant, he realized what he'd admitted out loud. The staff exchanged looks. One walked away briskly, likely to report it. My father paled. "What did you do?" I whispered. For once he had no answer. A hospital administrator summoned me to a private office. My father protested, but they firmly escorted him away. I watched him disappear down the hallway, sputtering excuses. His fear was almost palpable. Inside the office, the administrator closed the door. "Vivian, we're opening a formal review. Your father misrepresented your consent. That's a serious violation." I sank into the chair. "What does that mean for him?" She clasped her hands. "Potential disqualification. A minimum, his case will be paused. Coercion is taken very seriously." A swirl of guilt, relief, and sorrow surged through me. "I didn't mean to ruin his chances." "You didn't," she corrected. "He did." After taking my statement, she assured me they'd add notes to his chart, protecting me from further pressure. As I left, I saw him arguing with a nurse. Loud, frantic, unraveling. He spotted me. "This is your fault," he shouted. "No," I said calmly. "It's yours." He looked like he wanted to argue, but the staff escorted him out of the building. Walking to my car, I felt drained yet strangely lighter. For the first time, the power dynamic had shifted. But I knew sabotage was in his nature. This wouldn't be the end. It was just the beginning of his consequences. Days passed without contact, until he sent a message through my mother, asking for a final talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed. Public cafe, broad daylight. When I arrived, he was hunched over the table, looking older than ever. But his eyes were still sharp with expectation. "Vivian," he said softly. "I'm sorry." For a moment my breath caught. Then he continued. "I'm sorry you're making this so hard." And just like that, the illusion shattered. "I'm not here to be convinced," I said. He dropped the act. "You're throwing away your only chance to have a father." I laughed bitterly. "I never had one." His jaw tightened. "You're abandoning me." "No," I said. "I'm choosing myself." He banged his fist on the table. "You'll regret this. When I'm gone, you'll wish you had done the right thing." I leaned forward. "The right thing is protecting my own life. My own body. My peace." For the first time he looked small. Defeated. "Is this really it?" he whispered. "Yes," I said. "This is it." I stood and walked away, heart pounding, but not from fear. From freedom. For the first time in my life, I had walked away on my own terms. I expected silence after that final conversation. Instead, chaos followed. Word spread through his side of the family. Apparently he'd told them I changed my mind and betrayed him at the last second. But once they learned the truth, that he had lied, manipulated, and even fabricated my consent, they turned on him. Messages trickled in from aunts, cousins, even a nephew I'd never met. "I'm sorry we judged you. He lied to all of us. Please don't blame yourself." For the first time, people weren't calling me selfish. They were calling him out. Meanwhile, the hospital officially paused his transplant evaluation pending investigation. He tried calling from new numbers, but I blocked each one. When he couldn't reach me, he tried my mother again, begging her to convince me. He didn't. She finally understood. When he realized he had no more leverage, his messages turned cold, then angry, then pitiful again. But I had already decided. He no longer had access to me or my emotions. One night, I blocked the last unknown number and stood at my window, staring at the city lights. He was losing control, and I was reclaiming mine. His consequences weren't my burden. After weeks of constant turmoil, the silence felt strange, peaceful but unfamiliar. I started therapy, hoping to untangle the tight knot of emotions that had resurfaced since his return. My therapist, a calm woman with warm eyes, said something that stayed with me. "You kept waiting for him to be the father you needed. Now you're grieving the possibility, not the person." It hit hard. We unpacked my abandonment trauma, the guilt I'd carried, the belief that I had to earn love. I learned how deeply I had internalized the idea that my needs were burdens. Cried. Sometimes over things I hadn't let myself feel in years. Other times from relief that his voice, his judgments, his presence no longer dictated my self-worth. I started journaling. I reconnected with friends I'd pushed away during the chaos. I even took a weekend trip alone, something I'd always been afraid to do. For the first time I felt steady. Not healed completely, but grounded in myself. One night, sitting on my balcony with tea, I realized something profound. His return didn't break me. It revealed how strong I had become without him. And that strength, that was mine, not something he gave or could ever take. A few weeks later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Sharp, impatient, familiar in an unwelcome way. For a long moment I simply held it. Part of me wanted to burn it unopened. Another part whispered, "You deserve to know what he thinks." So I opened it. The first lines were venom disguised as sorrow. "Since you refuse to answer my calls, this is the only way I can reach you." Then the accusations began. "You're choosing to let me die. You'll live with this guilt forever. You owe me as my daughter." Same old script, same old manipulation. But halfway down the page, a smaller slip of paper fell out. Different handwriting. Softer trembling. I unfolded it. "Vivian, this is Lillian. I snuck this inside because I knew he wouldn't let me speak to you. I'm sorry for everything he's done. He hasn't changed, and I doubt he ever will. Protect yourself. You deserve peace." A lump formed in my throat. Not from grief, but from validation. Someone in his world saw me. Believed me. I tore his letter into pieces. Lillian's I kept. Some words are worth saving. His never were. One Saturday morning I drove to the beach. An old childhood escape. The sky was soft gray, the waves steady and rhythmic. I stood at the shoreline, letting the cold water wash over my feet. And without planning to, I let myself remember. Not the man he pretended to be, but the truth, the abandonment, the broken promises, the years I felt unlovable because he walked away. Grief came in waves. Unexpected, crashing, cleansing. Not grief for losing him, but for losing the idea of him. The version I once hoped he could be. I cried quietly, letting the salt of the ocean mix with my own. When the tears finally eased, I felt lighter. Like I had put down a burden I didn't realize I'd been carrying. I imagined that 12-year-old girl sitting beside me, backpack and all. I whispered to her, "You didn't do anything wrong. He left because of him, not you." The wind picked up gently, almost as if answering. I stayed there until the sun broke through the clouds, a small bright patch pushing through the gray. For the first time I understood. Closure doesn't always come from an apology. Sometimes it comes from letting go. And I was ready. Life slowly became mine again. I applied for a higher position at work, something I'd hesitated to do for months. I reconnected with my cousin Emily, who invited me to family dinners where laughter didn't feel heavy or forced. I even adopted a small tabby cat who insisted on sleeping across my laptop. Little things, but they felt like acts of reclamation. My mom and I began to rebuild too. She apologized again, not for his actions but for underestimating how deeply he'd hurt me. I forgave her. Genuinely. She'd been operating from fear, not malice. And for the first time we talked openly about the years after he left. Her struggles, my pain, the silence that filled the spaces he should have occupied. One evening while sitting at my desk, I realized something strange and comforting. He no longer felt like a looming shadow over my life. He was just someone who used to exist in it. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't scared. I wasn't waiting for anything. Not his love, his apology, his validation. My future didn't include him. And that felt right. I had finally stepped into a life that was mine alone. Months passed quietly. Then one afternoon I got a message from Aunt Lillian. "He got a transplant. From a distant cousin. He's recovering." I waited for the familiar sting of guilt. Never came. "He told people you refused," she added. "But we told them the truth." Apparently, he tried painting himself as the tragic hero again. But this time no one bought it. His own family called him out. Some stopped speaking to him altogether. Others told him he'd finally run out of people to manipulate. For once, the narrative wasn't his to control. That night I sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker. A soft breeze brushed my skin. Felt peaceful. Oh, he lived. He got what he needed. But not from me. And I finally got what I needed too. Freedom. Closure. And the unshakable knowledge that my worth was never tied to his presence. He walked out on me twice. Once when I was a child and once when I stood up for myself. But the second time I walked away too. And that made all the difference. This time the goodbye was mine.